and welcome along to a brand new video today where I'm looking back on the second episode of Doctor Who Series 11, The Ghost Monument. So yes, this was the opportunity for Doctor Who Series 11 to go off-world for the first time, go to an alien planet, explore sort of different concepts and ideas in that sense. We're left from the cliffhanger of the four main characters stuck out in space, and how would they resolve this? Well, pretty damn easily. So yeah, obviously it was just two spaceships, grabbing two of them each to split them up for about 10 minutes, and then they get back together again and it's all happy days. Naturally, it was always going to be resolved pretty quickly. That's just, there was not much you could really play with that. On the whole with this episode, I did enjoy it. It definitely wasn't one of the best episodes of Doctor Who there's ever been. There's no sort of arguing with that, I think it's fair to say. But it was hardly bad, and I did thoroughly enjoy it while I was watching, and it was an entertaining piece of television. It's maybe just not one I'd go back to many a time. I feel like one of the sort of, not fundamental, like not necessarily problems, but certainly a fact about this episode is there's very little plot. It is just a race across a planet between two people that the Doctor and co have accidentally stumbled on. And that is literally it. It's not even really plot, that's just like setting up a story more than anything else. And it doesn't progress anywhere, not very much actually happens, and then it just kind of ends. So in that sense, it's not really focusing on the plot and telling an exciting story. I think it's more about still developing the relationships between the different sort of main characters, and just us learning sort of about this new style of Doctor Who more than anything else, because this episode is really not about the plot. And I think what went along with that as a bit of a problem was that they just didn't show stuff on screen to kind of make this a more sinister, evil, sort of dangerous planet. Because they talked up about how this is such a dangerous planet, don't travel at night, don't drink the water, all this blah, 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 blah. And then we never, all they got for the water, all you got is a shot down at the water and the Doctor saying, oh, look, there's lots of tiny, like, micro, whatever, fish things that are going to eat anybody who drops in there. But of course you never see that. They just get on the boat and go to sleep. So it's kind of completely ignoring the dangerous aspects of this planet when the planet's built up to be, it's called desolation, and it's meant to be this dangerous, sort of difficult to travel across planet. And it feels like we don't really stumble across any trouble until you get to those sort of ruins. They just kind of wander along and it's all fine. So it's felt a little bit like they're not really living up to the billing almost, with sort of saying this is a dangerous planet and then not really making it a dangerous planet, or at least not showing us that it's a dangerous planet. So in terms of characters outside of the four main TARDIS team, you've got Angstrom and Epzo, who are the two sort of contestants in this massive race or rally or whatever you want to call it, across hundreds of planets and terrains and whatever to try and get this massive prize. Lots of money, basically. And then Ilin, the dude in the tent, sort of setting them off with on this adventure. Or this final task a bit more accurately, and he's a little bit of not a waste of time, but it doesn't really add anything, those scenes in the tent. It literally is just setting up what plot there is in this story. It's being set up and concluded in both of those scenes in the tent with Ilan. So he really doesn't sort of do anything other than a plot device, to be honest. In terms of Angstrom and Epso, I do quite like them both as characters, obviously for different reasons. Epso's kind of, not funny, but kind of like just entertaining at how dark and depressed and messed up he is about life and everything. And I do like it that he says that ridiculous line of, I don't play by the rules. And I love how the Doctor just instantly picks him up on that. It's like just saying, you know you're saying something completely ridiculous. Do you practice the line in the mirror? I just thought that was sort of a great moment. And he's just that sort of a character that sort of thinks he's really sort of brash and serious and dark and mysterious. And actually he's not. He's just a bit of a grumpy, moany, doesn't trust anybody kind of person who has heroic naps. And he was not meant to be, but I just found him almost quite a funny character with how sort of ridiculous and attempt to be dark and miserable that he was. But then to balance that out, we have Angstrom, who is a bit more of a sort of nicer kind of character, the one you really warm to through this episode a bit more. And I mean, neither of them added a huge amount to it. They were very much your standard kind of guest characters for the one episode only that are part of the plot, essentially, and don't add a huge amount more to it than that. But I still felt she did quite a nice job and had a few nice moments in the episode. And in case you didn't recognise both of those people, Susan Lynch, who played Angstrom, she was in Killing Eve just a few weeks ago, if you saw that. And Sean Dooley, who played Epso, he was in Series 2 of Broadchurch as Ricky Gillespie, if you may remember that as well. So just in case you didn't realise it at the time, that's where you might recognise him from. In terms of the rest of the story, plot-wise, of what there is, once we turn up on these ruins and get the very generic sniper bot robot thingies that kill people, it felt just a little bit uninspired, maybe unimaginative. It's just such a generic sort of robot with gun villain that you get in Doctor Who so very, very often, or in sci-fi very, very often. So it'd be nice if they maybe could have done something a little bit different with it. I mean,
In terms of the final sort of villain, the Remnants as they were called, they were a little bit different at least, reasonably interesting. And I did quite like the whole idea where they're explaining about the scientists having to sort of being forced to create these kind of weapons and these dangerous things, which then become the sort of dangers of this planet. And then one of those is the one that's attacking the Doctor and the team at the end of the episode. So that's quite nice. And the Remnants, they do look quite sort of interesting and unusual. They almost look like sort of scrunched up paper that's kind of sort of all joined together and is kind of engulfing people and trapping them and killing them and everything. So there was some nice idea behind that, but again, they didn't feel like much of a threat. Like the sniper bots were wiped out in no time at all. Ridiculously easy. And the Remnants were also pretty easily wiped out as well. The ending just didn't feel that sort of spectacular or climactic. It kind of just happened and then was over, unfortunately. Looking at the main characters of this episode, the TARDIS team, I think Jodie did another great job as the Doctor in this episode, very much developing the character along again. Just kind of, I feel like getting into the role a little bit more. There wasn't really any of the clunky lines that we saw just from time to time in episode 1. And she just keeps on feeling more and more like the Doctor with the sort of really long, ridiculous explanations of stuff, answering her own questions, just all the sort of quirks that you get of the Doctor. That she's really bringing out really effectively, I think, and that's fantastic to see. The one thing that threw me off a little bit, and kind of I was, I guess, a little bit confused why she was so defeatist as soon as the TARDIS wasn't where she was expecting it to be. She was just kind of like, oh no, it's not there, I'm so sorry, I give up, what am I doing? And it just felt a little bit pathetic almost from the Doctor, like, this isn't a Doctor who's, in at least as much, maybe trying to find out who she is, or anything like that. Like, that was Capaldi's sort of arc, that's not really Jodie's arc so much. So it just, I don't know, if you guys can explain to me better why that happened in this episode, I just didn't really quite get why she was so defeatist. It gave an opportunity for them all to become a sort of team, and they were all getting around her and saying, it's all right, we can still do it, don't worry, we're all together, it's all happy days. So giving the others almost a chance to shine. But I don't really feel like it just made much sense with Jodie's character. When she'd already explained that it was phasing in and out of time, she'd already said that it might sort of, so at some points it's there, sometimes it's not, and it sort of faded in and out. So surely she would have realised that again and just should have waited. So it just confused me a little bit. But overall, Jodie did a brilliant job in this episode, I think, and is just going to keep on developing into a fantastic Doctor. Then in terms of the sort of companions, or friends as you want to call them, unfortunately Yaz for the second week in the row has basically nothing to do. She did nothing for the plot or anything in this episode. Unfortunately at the moment she feels like they want to kind of a bit left out. I think because Ryan and Graham have got the connection, those two are naturally sort of put together and given a bit more story and a bit with like great everything happened to Grace, just a little bit more to talk about almost, I think, in the episodes. But then they also feel quite close to the Doctor, and I feel it almost feels like the Doctor is sometimes trying to pay attention to Yaz, sometimes not, and Yaz just feels a little bit kind of left on the outside without very much to do or very much to say. And so she didn't serve any purpose in this episode. The episode would have been no different without her, which is a shame, I think. It's, of course, with, when you have 3 companions, it's naturally difficult to give them all a sort of starring role every week. But it feels like 2 episodes in, we know nothing about her, and she hasn't really done anything yet. So that is a bit disappointing. But in terms of Ryan and Graham, I did really like some of the scenes they had together. You can tell how much sort of Graham really wants to kind of be the grandfatherly figure to Ryan and really wants to help him. And Ryan keeps kind of pushing back and saying, no, you're not my granddad. And just still a little bit angry about everything that's happened, I think, and is just trying to sort of deal with all of that. And so it's really a really nice dynamic, but at times they're also working together and sort of Graham's kind of trying to encourage Ryan. And I really like those sort of aspects to it. I mean, I love Graham as a character. He's probably my favourite of the 3 friends. He's just very funny. He's just got some witty lines, but he's also very kind of warm and just a very real character, I think, as well. Not just a comedy character in there for the sake of it. He also sort of, has some really nice moments. Though one thing I have to say about Ryan, which is a little bit unfortunate, I think, from at least it felt in this episode, is Ryan's what I essentially would call sort of selected dyspraxia, where essentially it feels like in some moments where it's convenient, they'll remind us that he has dyspraxia. In some moments where it's not convenient, he won't have dyspraxia, essentially. Like when he suddenly picked up the gun and started running around shooting people. Surely if he had dyspraxia, I know I'm not an expert, I don't know much about that as a condition, but surely he wouldn't find that so easy to be able to run out and do that if he's got dyspraxia. But then suddenly he's struggling to walk up a ladder and getting all panicky about that. So it just really sort of confuses me. I mean, if anybody sort of knows more about dyspraxia, you can explain maybe that this is a real thing and that's just how it is. But it feels a little bit almost like lazy writing of like, we'll use it as his condition when it helps service the plot. And when it doesn't, or if it's inconvenient for the plot, we'll forget about it. Like when he's sort of running really fast away from the sniper bots. He was able to run really fast, no problem, whereas in other moments he's falling over doing it. So it just threw me off a little bit, I think, and was
yeah, if you can explain it to me better, guys, please do let me know in the comments below, but it just felt a little bit off. I do feel like I'm kind of slating this episode quite a lot, really pulling out all the criticisms I can find in this episode, but I did enjoy it, and it wasn't a bad story. Like, it did keep me engaged for the whole 50 minutes, and I wouldn't have turned off at any point. So overall, despite what I'm saying, I did enjoy it. I think there are just a lot of faults in this episode as well. A couple of other aspects to talk about, of course, the new titles. I think they are fantastic. They look absolutely amazing. They really do bring out sort of Pertwee vibes to it. The music fits perfectly. The graphics made by John Smith of John Smith VFX, of those amazing things like Hulock from years back and those sort of Series 8 trailer thing that he did. And those amazing sort of CGI VFX stuff that he did in the past. He's now created the titles, and that's pretty incredible. And they do look absolutely stunning. And of course, the new TARDIS was introduced as well, but I'm not going to tell you guys all about this in this video because I did a video about it yesterday. So if you haven't already, go check out that video. Link might be here or might be in the description, depends if I remember to put the annotation in. But yes, go check out the video to find out all my thoughts on the new TARDIS. And so overall, this episode was enjoyable. It has its faults, as I've explained, but I would watch it again. It's a 7 out of 10 episode. It's not the worst thing that's ever happened to Doctor Who, it's just not the best thing that's ever happened to Doctor Who. And you get episodes like that in a series. I think the important thing is in the next 2 or 3 episodes we do have a really good episode, because episode 1 was good, episode 2 just under good. We need, hopefully episode 3, Rosa, which sounds like a really good story, we need it to be a fantastic story, because otherwise it will just feel like a bit of an average series, I think, if we don't get a really good episode soon. But this was an enjoyable story. And of course, as always, do let me know what you guys thought of this episode in the comments below. I'd love to hear whether you loved this episode, hated it, or anywhere in between. Do just let me know your thoughts on the Ghost Monument. But that is just about it for this video, guys. I will be posting the soundtrack to this episode, hopefully tomorrow evening, if all things come together, and I've still got a few more videos planned for the rest of the week, and of course the coming weeks as we get more and more fantastic new Doctor Who. But other than that, remember to hit that like button, subscribe if you're new here, follow me on Twitter at EMS_Productions to find out all the info about my new videos coming up, because I always tweet about them, and waffle on about Doctor Who generally. But other than that, I'll see you again very soon for another video. Goodbye.